Hey everybody, it's me, Remy, the comic book poser, and today I'm here to tell you which 8 books from last week I loved so much that if you didn't pick them up, you should pick them up on this week's New Comic Book Day on Wednesday, September 9th, 2020. Find out what my top 8 are after this.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Coming in at number 8 is Firepower number 3 from Image Comics, written by Robert Kirkham and Chris Sammy. I didn't initially read this when it first came out, that I didn't check out the New Comic Book Day book or pick up the trade, and then I decided, after hearing everybody talk about how good it is, and think about how much of a dummy I am for not wanting to pick up something new from Mr. Walking Dead himself, I instantly had to rectify that situation. And the story is interesting, watching this man who's trying to find out the identity of his parents and becomes a martial arts master throughout his life's journey is something that's pretty interesting. And what is happening in this particular issue is we kind of get to see Owen go through his day-to-day life, but then he's also got like little bits of parkour in him to kind of keep on top of his game, but he's still kind of haunted by whatever happened that caused him to leave the place where he was trained, and kind of reinvigorating the ability to manipulate, you know, the heat waves with his hands, right? To become a person who could wield this firepower. So it's interesting kind of learning about what he ran away from and what he still might kind of be tied to. And I'm real excited to see what happens in number 4. Coming in at number 7, Black Widow number 1 by Kelly Thompson, Elena Casagrande, and Jordi Belair on colors. I love the way Kelly Thompson constructs characters, from what she is doing in Deadpool to what she did on Jessica Jones' Blind Spot to what she's doing on her ongoing X-Men series. I knew I needed to pick this up quick, fast, and in a hurry, and I kind of like how at the very beginning, right, we get classic, you know, ass-kicking assassin in Black Widow. But then, all of a sudden, it almost kind of takes a little bit of a Hawkeye turn halfway through, right? Where we get to see Natasha on kind of her day-to-day basis with what she's doing, and then we see a little bit of, you know, exceptionalism with what she's got going on. But what really hooked me is the end of this book in terms of the reveal of the potential villain. If you remember anything that I said about Nick Spencer's run on Spider-Man that was positive, it was the way that he used a particular villain. And I want to see how Kelly Thompson uses the individual who was revealed on the last page to kind of set up the crisis arc, the conflict that we're going to have to see Black Widow deal with. But I really enjoyed this a lot. Coming in at number 6, We Only Find Them When They're Dead from Boom Studios, written by Al Ewing and art by Simone DeMeo. I love a good sci-fi story. I like people who try to find kind of a new angle, and what you've got going on in We Only Find Them When They're Dead is you've got people who are running like junker ships, collection ships throughout space to mine dead, like gods, dead celestial beings. So we see that people out there are like mining for armor to get rare metals. We see that, you know, the particular ship we're seeing is that they're out mining and they end up taking like the meat off the bone of the celestial being, but there you learn that there's a member of the crew who is hell-bent on wanting to find one of the gods who is still alive by the time they get to him. But this is an intriguing story in terms of looking at the grind of, you know, what they're doing in terms of black market operations of mining organic material from a celestial being. It's interesting looking at how there may be some potential conflict with other junk ships throughout this story, but the art in this is phenomenal, right? That picture that I showed a few seconds ago of the dead goddess in space is fantastic. When we see something as simple as, you know, multiple spacecraft kind of traveling through the heavens, that's done in a breathtaking fashion as well. And the colors in this book feels like I'm watching a trailer for a sci-fi film instead of just looking at ink on paper. So bravo to the creative team on this one. This book will probably shoot itself up the rankings in later weeks, because I think there's a high potential for delivering a pretty interesting story in this book. Coming in at number 5, I gotta do it again, right? I don't feel bad for liking Transformers My Little Pony. It's number 2. It's an IDW book. There are 2 stories in here. One of them is written by Ian Flynn, the other by Sam Maggs. And then the creative team on the 2 respective stories are Sarah Petrie Durocher, Joanna LaFuente, and Jake Wood on the first half of the book. And then Casey Collier, Joanna LaFuente, and Neil Utake on the second half. So in book 1, we see that the Transformers show up on Equestria, and they're trying to figure out what's going on in the 2 stories. In the first story, in this one, we learned that some of the My Little Ponies ended up on Cybertron, the homeworld of the Transformers. So in the first book, we get to meet Spike, who is an advisor to Twilight Sparkle, and he ends up in like a command center with Grimlock, and of course it gets attacked by Decepticons, and he is willing to sit down and figure out Cybertronian machinery to figure out how to help Grimlock in the battle, which I think was an interesting story to watch a pony take on some, you know, Decepticons. But the second one really got to me, the They Eat Ponies, Don't They? Because apparently there's a cooking show on Equestria. I don't know why that would shock me. There are probably cooking channels on any sentient planet where life wants to learn how to cook different things. So we've got Gage and Pinky are making their favorite foods, and this turns into its own big kind of over-the-top battle between those 2, and I think it's Starscream that shows up. But just kind of the absurdity of robots versus ponies in the midst of a pony cooking show was just hilarious to me. I'm not going to go out and read other My Little Pony books. I'm not going to make that crazy of a jump, but this is 2 for 2, where the title is intriguing to me, and in terms of the 4 short stories delivered across issues 1 and 2, I don't know how you cannot like this book. Coming in at number 4 is Spy Island number 1 from Dark Horse. It's written by Chelsea Kane. All of the artistic design is by Leah Mitternick. The primary artist on the book is Elise McCall. On colors, it's Rochelle Rosenberg, and the letterer is Joe Caramagna. I knew I wanted to pick this up for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's been a while since we've seen a book that doesn't have Alien in the title come out of Dark Horse. And the second is because Chelsea Kane is on this book. I love Maneaters. I think that book is phenomenal. The art on this is kind of beautiful and picturesque, because we see, you know, a man swimming in the ocean, and it's all lovely and pinks and blues because he's waking up in the, you know, swimming in the ocean in the morning. And then all of a sudden we learn that something isn't going right for him while he's swimming. And from this page, you see some of the mixed media in terms of actual pictures of fish inserted in there with some of the paper, you know, pen and paper art of the creative team. And I like some of that from issues of Maneaters, where you would see some of those kinds of things pop in. So I really enjoyed it. But you learn that Spy Island is an island in the Bermuda Triangle where everybody shows up to kind of deal with their shenanigans, that it's the best of the worst, and you can see in this 2-page spread all of the people who show up at a particular like hotel club or a fundraising event while they're there, and you can just see, if you read the black text on that image, everybody who's kind of involved, and you know that they've got to be up to no good. A bunch of wild things kind of happen in the last like 7 or 8 pages that A, I didn't see coming, and B, I think will spoil everything if I show you. But the last thing that I'll show you that makes me know that I'm going to love the tone of this book is the back page, in terms of this kind of 1-page, magazine ad for people to come visit and enjoy all of the finer things that you can do in the Bermuda Triangle. And then, like, a Kraken-esque thing is popping up in the back to attack them. So, it was a good book. I'm real excited to see how the odd events at the end of Book 1 influence the beginning of Book 2. Coming in at number 3 is King of Nowhere number 5 from Boom Studios. It's written by W. Maxwell Prince, with the art by Tyler and Hilary Jenkins. I did not know until the end of this book, and then listening to, I think it was the Comic Burrito Boys on Wednesday night, mentioned that this is the end of the story, period. I don't know if there's another arc. It makes sense the way it did wrap up, but I'm left kind of wanting and desiring some more. But we figure out what role Dennis kind of played in all of this. We figure out why the conspiracy to cover up the true actions in North Warwick that we learned about between books 3 and 4 were kind of covered up, and what the citizens of North Warwick or Nowhere will do now that their story is going to become public. But we, see a big action-packed kind of battle series in the book in terms of things happening between the folks of Nowhere and the people trying to keep their story suppressed. We see Dennis getting ready to kick some ass, and everything that happened in this book was sheer perfection from start to finish. The premise was interesting, the art is beautiful, the way the story very rapidly escalates and delivers in a short 5-issue series was quite magnificent, and I would like some more, please. Please. Coming in at number 2, from AWA Upshot, is Grendel Kentucky number 1 of 4. It's written by Jeff McComsey, art by Tommy Lee Edwards, and the lettering is by John Workman. This is an interesting kind of hopping back and forth in time in the events of the small town of Grendel, Kentucky. I kind of like looking at this survivalist-looking dude that is rocking like his catcher's gear and Negan bat, and then just about any kind of incendiary device that you think someone can have. We see the connection that this dude may have with the law enforcement, because he gets pulled over, but not because he's strapped to the nines, because the police officer has some information for him. And then it kind of turns into information that ends up being revealed through the untimely death of someone. And this book, I think, has the potential to be as crazy as Red Border was in terms of how fast it escalates out of nowhere. So I think this book is going to be pretty cool. And then the one thing that everybody's been talking about, not related to the story, if you look at the Resistance cover and you see that at the bottom it says Baking Bad, that's one of the taglines that has been used on Bad Mother. So everybody has kind of talked about how AWA is creating this large shared universe in terms of all of their stories. So is this the first big clue that we get in terms of how Story A might connect to Story B? Who knows? I'm interested to kind of see the buzz all over social media from all of this, and it makes me excited to check out the next book from the Resistance to see if we get some of those little threads from a new title connecting to a title that's on the verge of wrapping up. Coming in at number 1 from Aftershock is Lonely Receiver number 1. It's written by Zach Thompson. The art and this A cover are by Jen Hickman, who I can never say enough nice things about, and then Simon Boland. This book feels a little bit like the movie, I think it was Her, where the guy falls in love with, like, Siri. I think that was a movie that I didn't just fever dream up during COVID. But one of the cool things that you see across, like, the first 2 or 3 pages is this woman kind of coming home, and you can guess by looking at some of the, like, panels that she's talking to some kind of AI. But then if you watch, like, this plant thing here in the bottom, like, you see a leg pop out of nowhere, and then it slowly starts to manifest itself into a body that we see all over this second kind of panel of that. And this book is a little confusing in terms of, like, is she remembering someone who died? Is this, you know, someone who can shift shapes and forms? But the relationship between these two women are quite intense. And what really gives clarity to this story and makes you want to go back and read it a second time is the back matter. That I'm not going to kind of show you things in depth, but after you complete the story, you get what looks like a 2-page, like, instruction manual for something. And when you read that, you go back and think about individual elements of the story, and it all makes sense. It's like, you know, the proliferation of Jonathan Hickman charts and Decorum, or in any X-Men title that he's touched in the last, 14, 15 months. But that helped a lot. And then the last thing that you get is 2 pages of a journal entry from the main character, where you can kind of see the effect that the relationship has on her. The art in this is brilliant, and I would show you more, but there's a lot of, like, nudity and sex that happens, so I don't want to get a "you're showing porn" strike. But this book was just on another level compared to everything else this week. Don't get me wrong, I loved the books that I mentioned this week. There were only maybe 2 books from everything that I read that I didn't like out of the, like, 22, 23 books. But this one just delivered in a wholly different way, and I keep thinking about the story, I keep reinterpreting the events, I keep thinking about individual panels of art, and just the staying power that this book had in a single week makes it hard to read other things with a clear mind, because I'm constantly going back and thinking about the events and the potential ramifications of my understanding of this story on what could play out in the rest of the world. So what did you think about my top 8? Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to know other things that I read and see how close they landed to making the list, I could have made a top 10 or top 12 list, but I figured 8 is enough. 8 is probably too many. But if you made it this far, dope. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I should go back and read something that I didn't, but interact with me in the comments more than me having to delete the porn bots. So as always, thanks for stopping by, and have a good one.